think of this conversation that my dad had with me. It was when I was deciding whether I was going to go to university or not. And he came in my room and he was like, yo, a lot of people do jobs because they need to have a career that they don't love. He's like, and he's like, I did that. He was a radio DJ, and then their station got bought out. So then he had to get a different job, and then he went into this professional field he went into. And he's like, when I get told no, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't even want to be doing this job. You're telling me no at something I don't want to do. He's like, I see you get told no every day, but you get back up the next day and you keep going because you love it. And it just reminded me of like, oh yeah, I do this because I love it. And that's the best thing for everything. It's like, why would I go do something else because it's safer and there's security? No, like this is the best job in the world. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Inspire to Inspire podcast, a place for actors, filmmakers, and content creators around the world to tune in, just connect the dots and know in reality. Today's episode, we had a good friend of mine, man, Taylor Gray. Him and I did the show In the Vault together on Crackle, which is the #1 watch show on there. If you guys have not seen that yet. And plus, this guy has been a voiceover, a lead on one of my favorite animation, Star Wars. Come on, you're part of the Star Wars universe, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Taylor Gray. What's up?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you.
You too, brother. What's been new with you, man? How you been? You been good?
Been hanging out. I mean, it's been a wild, last few years. I think everyone's kind of felt it, and especially people who are doing stuff in entertainment, like live entertainment. It's been a wild world for all of us. But dude, it's good to see you.
You too, man. You too, bro. So I kind of just want to dive straight into things, man. You know, look, over the years, you've been working on all kinds of projects, TV shows, films. You just got done doing one. You're getting ready to do another one soon. You've been doing voiceovers on hit shows. So throughout this entire process, why? Like, why did you even start becoming an actor? Why did you even dive into all this? What's your why when it comes to all of this, man?
Dude, I love it. That's the Viktor Frankl, the philosopher. If you have a why, then you can basically do anything. You can overcome any how. It's so important, man. I think it's changed. It's changed because I started when I was so young. When I was young, I saw these people entertaining my parents, my whole family. And I remember that feeling I got when we would all sit down to watch a film, or getting on the school bus in the morning and hopping on. Kids were talking about what they watched last night. And I saw how much energy they had. And then going into school, how that energy kind of went away. And then at recess, we go play basketball and we'd be talking about it more. And we would lift back up again. And I was like, I want to be in that space all the time, if that could be a job. And so I grew up fairly close to LA, and I started just doing commercials and whatnot when I was maybe 12. And I think I did my first film, I was about 13. So then it shifted into, oh, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to be good at it. I want to find truth and honesty and try and, like they say in Hamlet, be the mirror to nature. And maybe because we learned through what we saw in entertainment, and if there was any possibility of recreating that in a way. And then now it's changed even again, I would say, to this sort of space of wanting to create entertainment and escapism and tell stories.
Facts. Yo, no, I love that. Now when it comes to for example, right? Okay, you're a kid, you're inspired, you know that you have this this inward calling, right? That's saying yo, I want to do this. This makes me feel happy. What was actually the first step in terms of you taking initiative to make this a reality? You know, because we have a lot of people in this world that, you know, they say they want to be one thing, but then put in the steps and the work to actually make it happen is another. So
yeah, I would say I was a pretty proactive kid, to put it kindly, I guess. I remember my parents did not want me to get into acting. No one in my family was in the industry in any way. And my mom's a psychologist. There's horror stories around young kids getting into acting, but I was just so adamant about it. And I I would show them like PowerPoints and be like, if I just give me this opportunity, and then if it works out, it works out. If not, I'll give it up.
Let me
And
get.
little things just, I really believe in omens. And if certain doors open that you're knocking on, I think you're meant to be there. And you just, that's what I was doing. I was kind of just knocking on loads of doors. I did a commercial that I didn't have an agent or anything at the time. One of our friends was working at a theme park at Knott's Berry Farm. It's a theme park down here. One of
Okay.
our
I love
friends
Knott's
was
Berry.
a manager there. And they were like, if you skip school, my brother and sister and I all went. And they were like, we're going to shoot this commercial and then you can go on rides all day long. Every other kid was a lot smarter. They were like, I'm going to just go on the rides. I'll do the 30 minutes on the commercial. Whereas once we finished shooting, I went to the director. I was like, look, I've been trying to get in this for a minute. What do I need to do? He's like, okay, this little kid is a bit rambunctious, and he seems to be adamant about it. And he set me up with an agent, and then agent set me up with auditions, and then one thing led to another. And it's funny, it all goes back. The very first film I did, I think it was one of the first films I read for, because at the time I was just doing like commercials and print work and stuff,
Yeah.
being young. But the director was Brad Furman, who I know you worked with. And that was
Yeah,
the
that's
first film that
family.
I did. I'm pretty sure it was his first film that he directed.
What was the movie?
It was called The Take. It was with Tyrese Gibson, Bobby Cannavale, John Leguizamo, and Rosie Perez. And it was
Yeah.
that was the
Sounds
time
about
when
right.
I knew I wanted to act, but I didn't know, I didn't make the decision. And on that film, it switched for me when I remember working with John. He was playing my dad, and he's a bit of a method actor, and he was going around having me open all these doors for him and like zip up his jacket because he's rehabilitating after he's been shot. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, look, if this guy keeps asking me to do shit for him, like I'm gonna tell him to like fuck off. Like I get it. He's very cool, but I was just a young kid who I wasn't gonna like to be your assistant. Like
Your
I get it.
lackey.
This is my
Your
first film. But
lackey.
then I realized I was like, wait, this guy believes that this is reality. And as soon as I saw that, something in me clicked. Like I just saw so many older people at jobs that didn't love their job. And this dude was
Yeah.
playing pretend and he was so invested in it. And from then on, I was like, that's all I want to do. And
Yeah.
I just hope that it stays that way.
No, bro, I love that story because I had a moment like that too on Ray Donovan, right, with Eddie Marson. He plays Terry Donovan, and his character has Parkinson's, right? And bro, there will be moments before we'll be behind the scenes, just chopping it up, just having a conversation. You know how they go. First team on set, second team off. As soon as they go first team on set, I would see this man literally go from this like real normal to transform to where like he has Parkinson's, like the shakes, and like I was like, whoa. And like just even up until filming all the scenes, just like seeing that commitment and then seeing the transformation, I was like, okay, this is interesting. It does something to the brain when you see somebody go from reality to reality like that, So hearing how you're like John Leguizamo was just like, nah, he thought in this moment, like this is his reality. This wasn't like anything else, It's a different level of acting. You have people like Jim Carrey that kind of go that route and stuff like that, So I think that's dope, man. It's crazy that you worked with Brad, man, because Brad, I'm about to get him on the episodes very, very soon. And him and I always talk about this story about how like in this industry, you have to be prepared to be in this game for like 10 years, right? Plus, like going through the highs, going through the lows, like the good and the bad, right? But if you love it, you'll be willing to go through it all.
Oh, yeah.
So, with that being said, what were some of the things that you've struggled with over the years, and how did you overcome that? Or have you overcame it? Just as
I
an
mean, you're
actor,
always working it.
Yeah.
It like you said, is a very active thing, and I think any artist operates sort of in extremes, and I know I absolutely do. And so your highs are really high, and it's an unbelievable feeling, but your lows are also really low, and it's a wild feeling. And I appreciate this more than when I was younger working. People are open about it more and more, and it's I think very healthy to share your lows as much as you share your highs. Because for a while it
Yes.
was you would just hear the best things that were happening to everybody, and you're like, shit, am I alone? Like, am I the only one who's like struggling with this because it's good, but then it's not good at times. And I just had a
Yeah.
funky route because I did that film, and then things started to take off. I started to work a good amount, and I was offered a show on Nickelodeon where it was called Bucket and Skinner, and I played Bucket. So you're the lead of this show, and you're under contract for, I think they signed you for like 5 years or something. And so I couldn't do other things. So for 2.5, 3 years, I was in high school telling people like, yeah, I'm on a show. And they're like, sure you are. And I'm like, no, for real. Like, I know we've shot 3 pilots and it was like a multicam. Then it went single cam, back to multicam. They're picking up we're going to do it in a few years. And so all of this hype and anticipation built up where I was like, as soon as we're working on it and going, it'll be great. We start shooting the show. And before it comes out, I remember Nickelodeon, which was owned by Viacom at the time, that owns like MTV, Comedy Central, Paramount, and everything. They bring out to New York to do the like press junkets. And in Times Square, you see this poster of yourself 100 feet tall, and you're like, this is it. This is what I was waiting for. I told people I was doing this, and it was the most sad I'd ever been, because I was like, wow. I thought these like things outside of myself were the ones that were going to validate like why I'm doing this, prove this to that. When really I was like, oh, that thing is so intangible and it really has to come within. So I kind of erased everything that I thought was my base and had to start over, because it was kind of like a house of cards. It wasn't on something firm, where going to that question you're asking earlier of like, what is your why? Why are you doing it? Where's the joy in it? And I just had to go back to like the artistry of it and realize that what is happening externally doesn't necessarily match what's happening internally. And while it may look so great out here, or the opposite, sometimes I've been between a gig when I don't have a gig coming in. I've been so content and like happy with where my work's at. And I think every actor will say it. Like, some of the best performances I've ever done have just sat on a camera that 5 people have seen. That was a tape. And then other things that you get recognition for that are down on film or whatever, you're like, yeah, like I thought that could have been better. And so it is such a subjective art form that you have to find yourself in it. And that was like a big turning point for me in my career.
Yeah, no, I love you said that, because one of the reasons why I always start off with what's your why? As an actor, as a filmmaker, as a creative, that's the first question we have to ask ourselves. It's why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why are we deciding to go this route with our intentions? And it's a lot of why. So having that clarity and having that clear idea of what your why is, I think is so strong. And going back to what you said about outside things validating you, right? I resonate with that, man. Like, so tough, because in this industry, there's like this patience every actor has to go through when you do a project, from when you do it to when it comes out. And sometimes it can come out quick, sometimes it may take some longer time for it to come out. So in that process, there's a lot of in between time, and for me, I'm thankful that I've been able to realize that, like, my validation in terms of how I feel about my work, I get from once I'm on set. But once I leave, I let it go. Like, there's times where we had our scenes on in the vault, and I knew in that moment, oh, we killed this shit, right? We killed it, and then cool, I'm gonna let it go. Like, versus needing to feel like everybody, like feeling needing to feel validation for other people's opinions, right? So it's kind of like that mindset of like, there's a couple times where I've had self tapes, I didn't book it, but man, was I proud of my work. Man, did I feel good. Like that's where that validation comes from. And I love that you kind of went down that lane of just talking about how, like, the outside things didn't really validate it, but more so like your work, the things that you're bringing to the table, like that's what makes you actually feel good, is actually just doing the work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I want to ask you this though. So outside of that though, like, I kind of want to go a little bit further, bro. Like, in terms of outside of work, personally or mentally, do you deal with anxiety? Do you deal with anything that, how can I say, that you feel like you have to grow out of in order to become the person you are now? And the only reason why I'm saying that is because something I feel like I dealt with was learning when to, like, be more present, right? Because I will always catch myself like, what's next? Okay, I need to do this, and like my mind's always going like this, and I have to. So for me, meditation, prayer, doing these things for myself is what really helped me get that balance. So for you, what is it that keeps you balanced on those days where, like, it's not your day? you
Oh,
know?
bro. I mean, so many things. And sometimes I'm not able to rein it in. And
Mm,
I think people's actions really say so much as
mm,
well. Like, one, my mom is a psychologist. So I grew up like everything. If I didn't have that as a base, I would have been done after the Nickelodeon show. Like, I wouldn't have
mm,
found myself again in what I wanted to be as an artist. And luckily it was still, but it was in those formative years. I was 16, 17 at the time. So, like,
wow.
it's one of those points where you decide which way am I going to go? Like,
Mm,
am I going to stop and just go to university and not act?
yeah.
Or am I going to carry on with this? And what I ended up studying, which I think, going back to what I was saying, the actions, I think says everything about what I was looking for, which was just answers and guidance. I was still acting and I was working on films, but online I did my bachelor's in philosophy. I was just
Mm,
like, I need to get answers to what is my place in life? What am I looking for? How can I provide value to those around me?
mm,
And I mean, I studied acting a lot, so I was like, I need things to speak about, and I need to know what is interesting to me and what isn't. And through that, it led me to a lot of meditation. I read a hell of a lot of self help books. I was working on the Star Wars show you mentioned earlier, and every one of my castmates was a lot older than I was,
mm,
and they would all make fun of me because they're like, no 18-year-old should be reading self-help books. Like, what are you doing? But I was just
mm.
like going through, and I disagree with that. I think
That's a perfect time.
whenever, right?
Yeah.
But I was just trying to find answers
Mm,
for like how to silence the, like you said, the many voices that were
yeah.
always going on. And they still, to this day, like I meditate every day. Today's
Mm,
meditation this morning wasn't as good. It's sometimes it'll
mm,
feel like I'm having to work through it, but you just keep doing it. And other days it's so pure and clean and it's amazing. But again, you just let it go. And that's sort of
mm,
this idea that everything is temporal. And I always think, like, what if everything was taken away? What if all numbers went to zero? What
mm,
if all bank accounts went to zero? What do we have? We just have people
mm.
interacting with people. And I always want to make sure that we have the best version of that. And so I just try and always like focus back inward, because for me, if there's turmoil in there, everything outside, whether it's amazing or not, is going to be in a bit of disarray for me.
I love that. I think that's so powerful because it kind of goes, not kind of actually, let me replace that word, but it goes hand in hand with this video I actually saw of Kevin Hart, right? Kevin Hart was talking about how it's hard to wake up every day and give it your 100%. You know, like you're gonna
Yeah.
have those days where you're like, man, like I don't want to do this. Like this, like and the people that consistently keep pushing through that feeling of, even though I don't want to do this, I know I got to do it. That's the reason why things manifest. You know, taking the awareness to be like, yeah, I meditated earlier. It wasn't as good as it was as usual, but the discipline is keeping you focused, right? The discipline is keeping you locked on what the vision is in terms of, okay, like you said, I meditated, wasn't as good, but I know it's part of my routine and it's going to lead me to do what I need to do throughout the rest of my day, you know? Um, so with that being said, then in terms of right now, you know, you and your career, you and your life, and just everything that you've been manifesting, what's your biggest focus on terms of where you want to be going right now as an actor, as a filmmaker? You work on anything outside of acting? Because I know you do more than just acting as well, which is something I like to talk a lot on this podcast, which is not limiting yourself, creating more opportunities. So for you, what is that you do?
It's been a lot of things. I think having hobbies and things outside of this industry, it sort of has that of mice and men mentality. I definitely do. Of if you squeeze the bird too tight, you'll kill it, and if you don't squeeze it
Mm,
tight enough, it'll fly away. So it's like finding that
mm,
balance of having other things that fuel me, so that the art does have meaning and purpose and something fresh to it. And I love to
mm.
travel. I travel a lot, and I feel like between every gig, I have to go do something to sort of like fill up my cup, because you pour so much out anytime you create something that
So
if I'm not
facts.
going and filling it up again, then it's going to be just recycled water from, or whatever liquid from the
Mm,
last one. And so I love to just go create new experiences, whether that's, I'm a very social creature, but I also like to do a lot of things on my own and just have that space to sort of mull over things. But I write a lot, and that's been a huge thing for me for
mm,
a really long time. Just a way to get things out, and also empathize and get into other mindsets and think like other people. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're playing in like the economy of empathy. Like it's just about how we put ourselves in other people's shoes and looking at situations from someone else's perspective. But more than anything, towards the end of COVID, I mean, I think we all were like, "Are we going to work again? What is going to
Yeah.
happen?"
Facts.
I went out to London and I was like, I need to get back to the roots of like theater. And so I did a master's in classical acting and theater
Yeah,
and
that's
Shakespeare.
badass,
And
bro.
I realized, because you're in conservatory, so you're just every day, like 9, 10 hours performing. And I was like, I get so caught up in needing to like present this and that. I was like, no, it doesn't matter if one person sees this or 1 million people. I'm going to create and just perform for the sake of that and do my best, regardless of what network it's on, who's seeing this, how big or small something is. And I found such a joy in it again. And so right now, everything's been in just like finding the purity and
The
performance
truth.
and in art. Yeah, exactly.
No, I relate with that, man. You know, because there's a moment in one of my self tapes I do the other day, right? And I was doing the scene, and I stopped in the middle of it, and my friend Reggie was like, "Yo, what's up?" I was like, "This doesn't feel truthful, bro. Doesn't feel truthful. This doesn't feel this doesn't feel like that, you know." And then I found the truth in it, you know, and going back to what you just said about, look, you're grinding in the craft for 8 to 9 hours a day, and rather you perform in front of 5 people or 1 million people, the fact that you're just focused on the purity of that craft is why you're gonna win. And I'm gonna say that because for me, I felt like after the pandemic, I'm I say this with lightly, but for me in my experience, I was kind of thankful for the pandemic because it gave me a chance to reset and re-fall in love with acting because I was starting to get discouraged, you know, and like with doing projects and the delays and the pushbacks and when they're gonna come out, and it was just a lot of, you
Yeah.
know, and there's times I got discouraged, bro, and during the pandemic, it gave me an opportunity to re-fall in love with the craft, and I started by watching every episode of the Actors Roundtables. That's actually what inspired me to create this podcast because these actors were just sharing their stories and their experiences about what they were just going through, you know, the things that I thought it was just me at times, but I was like, no, like it's not. Like, thank you for helping me connect the dots and re-falling in love with the craft. I feel like has what brought on so many more manifestations now because I've been booking way more, working way more. I did the biggest film of my life. Like I feel like it's all come full circle because, like you said, it doesn't get any better than 5 or 1 million people. Because if you're doing it at a certain level, at like the best of that level, then that's why you should be doing it. And Nick Ritchie, my friends and directors on one of my other episodes, said the same thing, very similar. He said, look, it doesn't matter if you perform in front of 10 people or thousands of people. It doesn't get better than 10 people in that room. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like it's what you love to do. Like you love this shit and you're focused on just giving that best experience, bro, you're gonna win. That's why Michael Jackson, Prince, a lot of these entertainers, when they'll perform, they'll go find like underground clubs, you know, after the performances in like London and these like underground like areas where it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
real more intimate, so they can they just perform in front of thousands of people, but they're like, nah, like this is what's making me happy right now, you know, because they love that shit, you know. So I love that you shared that story, man. I thought that was awesome, you know.
Yeah, man. And dude, congrats to you on that and working on that film and having that feeling. And it's so fresh for me right now of like falling in love again with something that we're so ingrained in. Like, bro, I spend so much time, I mean, over the last 15 years just thinking about acting, like going to sleep, waking up, everything when I'm walking around looking at people, that it can start to wear on you. And we do need some
It
validations.
does.
Otherwise, you're gonna go
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. But
Nuts.
at the same time, like to have those moments where you see it from another angle and to say it again, like fall in love with it in another way is such a nice feeling.
Yeah, because you know, uh, like you just said, right? When you fall in love with it again, bro, when you fall in love, man, it's like, for me, it gives me the feeling of just breathing. Like, there's nothing that think about more, unfortunately. Like you said, I think about acting. Like, as soon as I wake up, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna study this, gotta do this, gotta write. It's all acting, filmmaking based, but it's like, I wouldn't be doing anything else because I think it's important for anybody in this business to find the tools and to find the realm that's going to allow your voice to speak the loudest, you know? So
Absolutely.
now that you're back from, you know, studying overseas, you went and got the extra growth over there. What are you doing now in terms of work on your own projects?
The writing is always consistent. I'm working on it. I want to put up more live theater. That was something that, I mean,
Mm,
everything's been film and TV. It makes sense. We're in this a digital age where things are put out, but there is such an energy in things that are live that you cannot get elsewhere. And it's just revitalized me in a way where I just got back from a film I was doing in Boston,
mm,
and I treated it a bit differently because I started to enjoy the performance for the people that were there as well, like on
mm,
set, because it's always a dance with the camera. And because we've been doing it for a while, like it's just second nature. I know where the camera is going to be. I know how to wait up if I feel
mm,
the dolly's going a little wide. I can find a moment that can pull me here, honestly. And you're doing all these things where I was like, what if it's just for the people that are here? And then anyone who else sees it through the camera, they get a beautiful glimpse later on. But
mm,
just making it about that. And so taking that, I want to do more stuff just like on stage and live. And so I've been looking at just like, we worked a lot of classic text, go back to classic
mm,
text, but also writing and finding new writers and linking up with people that I enjoy. But you're always in prep. I'm going to do a film next month. So you begin to like certain days I'll wake up and I'm like, okay, well, what if they move like this? Or what if they're sore in this part of their body? And you're just like
mm.
experimenting with so many different things. And so every day is a bit of like an evolution. And that's why I think actors are amazing, because and you talked about COVID, like there is this forced introspection that came from COVID that I think is good for the
Mm.
world. But actors are naturally forced to look inward always, because
Yeah, bro.
you're trying to mutate yourself into a way that you can take on someone else. And
Mm,
so I think it is a very beautiful craft, albeit it has its very disgusting parts as well that everyone's aware of, that it gets a
mm,
bad rap for, but it is a beautiful, like empathetic art form.
mm.
But yeah, I'm just prepping for that and wanting to do some live theater.
I love that shit, bro. Hell yeah. No, so look, as much as we know that there's highs and lows to this business, as much as we know that there's a lot of great things that comes with this business, how have you personally dealt with rejection?
I mean, probably not well. At this point, it's so funny. I tell people that it's actually sweet. My grandmother, when I first got into acting, once I convinced my parents I was going to do it, I was young, and certain things will stick with you. I remember she told my parents, she's like, they're gonna reject him a lot, and I don't want to see like my grandson get that. And I remember being
Mm.
like, I'm fine with that. First time I got told no, I was like, let me call them. I think they got it wrong. Like I didn't understand it, but at this point now, like no means nothing. Like it doesn't mean nothing, but to me, it's just like, all right, now, right now. Like it
Yep.
really, which is a very healthy thing for me in the long run. That it took a while to get to, because certain no's hurt a lot more than other ones.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, it's so subjective. I fall back, and I think we all delude ourselves in various ways.
mm,
But a belief that I genuinely have is like the best actor in the world, like they're out, like working on a farm somewhere. The best singer in the world doesn't get to sing, just goes out and does karaoke every Friday night with their friends. The best basketball player, like stop playing basketball when they're in high school. Like I have to believe that sort of thing, because it
mm,
isn't really a meritocracy, and it is so subjective. Like if
mm,
I believe you put in the greatest performance in the world, but the next person walking by says it's terrible, it's both the greatest and terrible, because we both believe it to be
yeah.
so. And
Yeah.
that's okay with me. And at the same time, I'm very competitive and I want to get every single gig that I read for, but
Mm,
it's not going to be the case. And yeah, it can be rough. I don't know if I handle it well, but I think you put it a good way earlier. Like it's behind us. Like once
yeah.
I've done it, and that's about the purity of that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
if it lives on and it's something that then goes out to a lot of people, cool. And if it's just for that casting director and those producers, also cool. Like I
Mm.
enjoyed it, and as long as I'm enjoying it, then I feel like it's gonna be all right.
Yeah, you know, and I love that because one thing I always like to say is whatever's meant for you won't be missed, right? So it's like I rather feel happy about the work I'm doing versus getting something that you're not happy with working on. You know,
Yeah.
so because there's been a couple of times where I know a couple people I know that have gone stuck on projects that they didn't want to be on. You know, they got stuck on things that they didn't, you know, so sometimes, you know, for me, no has turned to next opportunity. So every time I hear no, next opportunity. Cool. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's how I look at it. And you know, I think it's just one of those things where you have to learn how to develop the tough skin, and the only way you learn to develop it is by going through the experience. You know, because it's
Yeah.
different. It's different when you're like an athlete, or it's different when you're like, okay, so for example, if you're an athlete, you go and play a game, you lose. A lot of times you can you can either watch the tape, you can go back to the drawing board, you can things you can study, right, and be like, all right, in this field, it may come down to something. They're like, oh, it's not even the acting. It's just because the resemblance of the mother. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so
All the time. All the time.
it's like this like mental strength you have to now get, because I don't want actors questioning themselves. I don't want actors thinking that, damn, like it's not good at, like, is it me? Is it something I'm doing wrong? Because there's like this dichotomy where you have actors that are in acting classes all the time aren't getting work. You have people that are just, like you say, waiting tables or working a normal job and get the opportunity and they book. So it's like, does that make them a better actor, or is it just that they're just the right actor for the right role at the right time, and it's not about being the best? You know, it's
Oh,
like
dude,
this.
it's so much of that. And like I'll go watch The Last Dance and I'll get pumped up and I'm like, I'll just keep going in the gym. And like when I was playing sports, that was it. You just put more time in the gym, and usually it translated. Like that
Yeah.
it is a meritocracy more so. Whereas it kind of goes back to that. I always think about it, it's that of mice and men thing. Like if you squeeze it too tight, you will kill the bird. But if you don't do any work at all, it'll fly away. It's finding that balance of, I
Yeah.
remember early on, like testing for gigs, which like people who know that process, and that's the one thing that's still like I'll get a little stressed on. Otherwise, I feel all right. But going in on things where it's the last two of you, three you left, you signed everything, you're going in. I remember for like the earlier tests I would do, I thought I have to like stay up working everything. I need to know the lines backwards. I need to know their lines. I have it all dialed down. I'm so ready that if they throw anything at me, I'm so ready, yada, yada, yada. And then I was like, yo, that's insane. I've killed certain things because I was so on it, as opposed to flow state is such a big thing. And they've shown a lot with like athletes of staying in. I think there's a book called like The Beautiful Game of Tennis, or The Subtle Art of Tennis, something like that. But it's about flow state. And with acting, I found that to be just so healthy, of staying in this place of, I know I'm going to do the job. Like I'm not worried about that. And I'm also not going to stress so much that I'll be frozen to a new idea that might come in the moment. And who knows, present something more honest than anything I've worked. And I actually had a coach early on who was amazing, who he would tell me, he's like, you have this down. He's like, why don't you go in and just fully mess up the beginning of it? Like do something that makes no sense, just so now everyone's in this free fall and this suspension, and it's going to be live because you'll find your way. And the way I understood that was like, oh, I need to just like let it flow. And that's the last 10 years have just been that, like trusting the process and knowing like it's all there, and that it's not going to be always down to, like you said, the best actor who worked the most amount of hours and all the like. It's opportunity in the right time, and there is luck in
The
this gig.
alignment. It is, you know, it's crazy you said that, man, because what I've learned though too at the same time is when you get to those levels of auditions, right? It's almost like, you know, keeping like that, like, because when you say flow state, it's like, well, what is that flow state? Like, you know, what's the levels of it? So it's like you get that first audition, you're like, our self tape now. You're like, cool, get it. Call back. Oh, bet. Okay, so now I can have a little more time. This character now, I can, you know, dabble. I can try make some little bit different choices that are stronger that I didn't get the chance to do maybe on this one I saw after. Cool. You get past the callback. Now you're in the directors and producers session. Now you're in front of everybody, and it's like, okay, you go through that phase, and then you have the testing deal. And so there's so many different phases, right? And for me, I don't know if this applies for you, but for me, that flow state is purely, each time I get to that level, I like keep treating it like the first audition, because I will find myself at times where a couple of testing deals I had, I'll have a testing deal, and I'm like, all right, I need to lock in, I'm going to focus, okay, the contract, the numbers of this, like, damn, okay, maybe there's this, and I'm not stayed up all night, remember, like, I'm like, okay, what am I, like, it's just like, I put this fucking huge amounts of mass of, like, pressure, and not even realizing I'm putting pressure, because in boxing, we have something called overtraining, right? When a boxer does too much, and it becomes counteractive to their training, so they actually wear their body out faster. So here they are thinking that they're conditioning themselves, they're taking themselves to another level, but you're overtraining your body. So when you get in time to perform, you're not going to be at your highest optimal level. So I found myself overtraining on certain testing deals, because like you said, like you start thinking about the pressures, you start thinking about us, and to me, so that flow state, it's just like I treat it like the first one, the first I'll take. I'm like, oh, cool. Oh, got a contract, great, cool. Like,
that's the way to do it. It goes to that thing of like, whether it's 5 people or 1 million people, it's not the and I mean, this is full circle. It's not the external. It's not the deals here, or it's not the first audition. It's just what is coming from my art. And that is the big thing for me, and flow state for me is just keeping it from that pure place. And then it won't matter what it is, whether it's the first audition for something, or it's testing for 50 different people. Like, it's gonna be pure, and it's gonna be cool, and it's gonna be instinctual.
Yeah, when it comes to those testing deals specifically, for me, it was never really about the people. It's always like seeing the 6-season deal, seeing how much you're making per episode, and then I started thinking about the shit I could do for my family, and that's what would be like, what would take me off, versus being like, hey, it's not yours yet. That's something I love that Billy said in one of the last episodes. He was like, well, if I get a testing deal, the job was never yours yet. You know? So why are you making plan all these things when it's not yours quite yet, you know? But I love that you shared that story, man, because I feel like a lot of actors just need to just keep that in mind of, look, man, just double down on the craft. Just double down on your love and your passion for what you're doing, because it will register. It will come out when the time is right. But if you're trying to seek that outside validation in the wrong ways, you're going to find yourself in the same circle over and over and over again, you know?
Yeah. And there is no finish line. And you said earlier, like, you have to look at it like it's a long career. And that was a big thing. Like, I thought in my head, hey, there is a finish line. When I see myself on the poster, like, that's going to be, but it's not. Like, I had to realize that the journey is the best bit of all of it. Like, if I can't enjoy every time I get to audition, like, I mean, this is all full circle. Going back to like what the why is. When I first wanted to act, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to make loads of money, or like people are going to love me. No, I was like, I get to pretend and do this thing that I love to do anyways with my brother and my friends. And you're telling me I could do that for a job and for the rest of my life? And that was it. And it was so pure. And then obviously all these things come in, like, you have to pay a mortgage, you have bills, you want to do cool stuff for your family, you have to feed yourself, and all of these things become pressures on you, and life happens, and you lose people, and you go through breakups, and all this shit happens. But you still have to just find that place of, it is an escapism. And I think it's why so many people love the arts as well. It's a time to go away from
everything,
the hardships of life, and just enjoy a story.
Yeah, man, you worded that so well, because to this day I still feel like that's my outlet, man. Like, I crave, right now I'm craving a character that allows me to just really dive into the depths of myself that I haven't gotten the opportunity to do with my other characters yet. But it's this how can I say, this balance of living in that world and then dealing with the reality. You know, that's why I feel like a lot of actors get depressed when they get off set, because you get off set, you got to deal with a lot of the real life shit.
Yeah.
The relationships, the bills, the whatever is going on. But when you're in set, it is an escapism, because you know it's like one big ass summer camp, bro. You're just playing around all the time. You're fun. You're this, and then it's like you come back to reality, and you're like, how can I find that next thing again? And I feel like it's that addiction, because I feel like every actor needs to go through those periods of not working to appreciate what it feels like to work.
Oh yeah, I think that's so true. So true.
Unfortunately, because when you do have that period of not working, it makes you realize like where you can work on yourself, how you can double down, and how you can evolve. But outside of acting, dude, so how did the voiceover thing come into play? Because let me tell you this right now. I've told this to everybody since day one. I don't care how big of an actor I become. Box office, green lighting movies, great. I won't feel super, super, super ultra successful until I do a voiceover in a Disney movie or some Star Wars shit, bro. Like, that's just me. I grew up on that shit. I love it. So how does that feel, and how did that happen, bro? Like, how did you find yourself getting involved to the voiceovers and get involved with Star Wars and the whole nine?
Bro, it was so funny. I'd never done any voiceover. Like
No
that
way.
was, yeah, I mean, I'd done voice training the way
Yeah.
you do in different classes and whatnot.
Mhm.
But my agent at the time sent me the audition the way she sends any auditions, and she was like, "Yo, just a heads up, like you don't need to put yourself on camera. Just do this like in your closet." And I remember I was like, "Okay, sure, like fine." I recorded it, and this probably is why it ended up working out. I just recorded like, yeah, sure, like sent it in. It also Star Wars is so anything that comes from Lucasfilm so confidential. Like there's like a pass around the script. They called it Wolf, so I had no clue, and I'm a moron. Like I was like, yeah, like I thought I was reading for Jungle Book, if I'm honest, and I was like, okay, cool. But other people in the cast were like, yeah, you idiot. Like it said like energy sticks, and like he was using it. They didn't call it the Force. It was like something else. But I wasn't aware of this, so I sent it in. Didn't hear anything for like a month and a half, 2 months, which we don't hear for a while, but that's too long. Like I was like, oh, I guess I suck
Happened
at
with me
this.
with
Whatever.
Roadhouse. 2 months.
Did it?
I auditioned, and I didn't find out till a month and a half, 2 months later that I booked it. I got my director session a month and a half later, and then I booked it. But yeah, it was.
So you
That was
basically have forgotten about it at that point, or no? You were like, this is still coming.
completely
Yeah.
forgot. Completely.
But it went that way, and then they were like, come into the studio and meet, and I went in with some of the people. Again, I still had no idea because they didn't have any like drawings or mock-ups yet. We recorded a couple times, but I remember I wasn't gonna go because I was shooting something else that day that they were having the session with like the three of us left, and I was 2 hours late, and I called my mom, and I was like, I'm not going. Like I don't know what I'm doing anyways. All this, they still hadn't said it was Star Wars, so she was like, just go and like do it for you. And that was a beautiful thing because otherwise I would not have gone to. So I remember I was like, I had a hat on backwards. I was all sweaty. I was coming off set and I was like, screw it, whatever. And then a week after that, they were like, hey, you're getting an offer for it and it's Star Wars. And I was like, oh, I would have screwed it up if I knew that. Like, you know what I mean? I had no clue what it was. And then it was amazing because like every other show I've been on has been canceled after, I think the longest has been 2 or 3 seasons, something like that. Never have I been able to like work with the character over, I think we did almost 80, 90 episodes, something like that. But the collaborative creative team there was so great. And like, it was just cool to see people who Lucasfilm's been around since 1977 or even longer than that. But when the first Star Wars movie came out, they're such a well-oiled machine where they trust the artists. They like let you have agency and autonomy and really listen to you as an actor. And it was just such a cool experience. And then seeing how big the Star Wars universe is, like I then went and would do conventions like in Europe and different places. I didn't
Bro, when I
realize
see
how
you at
big it
those
was.
conventions, I'm like,
It's
yo,
funny.
Taylor is out there right now with everybody, bro. That is so fire, man.
It's cool, man. And it was just cool to see people that we got to work with some amazing people as well. Like Forrest Whitaker came on the show and James Earl Jones was doing Vader on it. So it was cool to like, I remember I got goosebumps the first time I heard him through the mic doing it as Vader. I was like, oh shit, like this is real. Yeah. But it's cool, man.
That's so awesome, man. I think that's such a great experience, and it's just dope that you were able to be a part of something so iconic. Star Wars is something that me and my entire family grew up on. Me and my brother use Star Wars references every day. Like when we see, like, you know how in LA sometimes there's this term called like energy vampires. We just call them Siths.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, so everybody's like, oh, she's a Sith, bro. You gotta stay away from that one, bro. Like, that's a Sith, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so we use the references for so many random things, man. But it's beautiful to see that where you've been able to take your journey, bro, from age, 16 to now, and dealing with the highs, the lows, dealing with working, not working, and my favorite part of your story is how you're like, I booked it and it was like I didn't even like you didn't take, I won't say you didn't take it serious, but it was, look, we all have those self tapes or those auditions where we're like, I gotta knock this out real quick and then keep it moving for the rest of my day.
Yeah.
Right? Dead ass. Roadhouse is the same thing.
Dude, I know exactly what you're saying.
bro, I remember I was at the gym. I got hit up. My team's like, yo, you got same day self-tape. Got to submit this for Roadhouse. I'm like, all right, bet. Like, I'm like, shit, I gotta hurry up and go. Cause I already had plans for my day. So I'm like, damn, I gotta go knock this out. I call up my girl. I'm like, hey, can I come to, she has a nutrition shop. I'm like, can I come to the store? Film it in the back room. I can't even get my self-tape set up.
Back of a nutrition shop?
Yeah, the back room, bro. Like, we just made it look nice, like self-tape ready, bro, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm like, babe, this is what's going on. Let me knock this out. Boom, boom, boom. Do the scene, couple scenes. I'm like, all right, I feel great. Submitted it on with the rest of my day. Didn't even think about it. A month and a half goes by. I'm not even, I don't know where I was at. I forgot, but I just remember it was like a month goes by and my team's like, yo, you got a director session for Roadhouse. I was like, did I audition for like a month ago? They're like, yeah. I was like, for sure. All right, bet. And at the time, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of like, I feel like that's why I got it, bro. I was like,
yeah.
I told my dad, I was like, oh, I got to call back for Roadhouse. The director said, he's like, Roadhouse? What? I'm like, yeah, I got to call back for Roadhouse. So I'm just going to lock in. He's like, it's hella normal. And then after I did the director session, time goes by, I'm in the gym, and then I find out that Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor are in the movie and everybody who's in it. I'm like, oh, shit. But moral of the story, man, it's like I'm trying to get better myself at when it comes to writing, when it comes to content creation, when it comes to even my auditions, to just have as much fun as possible, to not let the numbers or the potential outcome of what can happen add extra pressure.
I'm sure sway you in some way.
Sway you. Like, when you get like a scene or like a self-tape project and you see who's attached.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Certain ones I call up certain friends to tape. I'm like, I need you to tape with me because this is a real one. And then other ones, I'm like, yeah, honestly, like, I don't care. You've never acted, right? You just read this for me real quick. Like, I still have stuff. I want to go hang out later. Like, I just need to bang this out, especially when it's the same day one. Mm-hmm. But I love that you were like, yeah, I just have to hit it. And I think that is the one thought I have with all of that, which, because, I'm the same way. I think so many actors have that, is we've done the work. So we can trust that we'll just, you know what I mean? That we can just keep it moving. Like, the biggest thing for me that is one of my mantras is life comes first. Like, I don't want to be so busy worried about acting that I miss parts of life. Like, life is going to happen. Like, I'll always book a trip. And the worst thing that happens is I then have to cancel something to go do something else that I would rather do. But life is the first thing, first priority. My friends, my family, that's first. And then acting will follow. And it works out better that way, because I've had times where I'm like, I remember when this pilot season, like, oh, I won't leave. I won't leave for these 5 months. I have to be here locked in, ready. And then I wouldn't get anything. And then the pilot season where I was like, all right, shit, like, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to get back for this. You make it work. And then you're like, oh shit, that's the one where I booked the job.
I'm so happy to hear that with each podcast I'm doing with a creative, a filmmaker, an actor, these are the things that are happening in today's present time. And I don't want anybody feeling like they're losing themselves or feel like they're mentally going insane because they don't know how to have that balance, So yeah, if you're going to plan a trip, take that trip. Worst case that happens, you need to leave early and you need to go film. It happened to me with City of Lies. I was in London with my family, and I get a call saying, hey, can you be on set in 2 days? I'm like, I'm in London. But am I going to miss the opportunity to film with Johnny Depp? Hell no. So I booked the ticket and we flew back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's how life works. That's fine.
It's
it's
fine.
better to be saying no to one thing and doing that than not in life.
Exactly. So, I lastly, man, just to kind of just start wrapping things up in terms of projects right now, what's something that has you like hella excited? Are you getting ready to work on something soon, or I know you say you have your own things lined up, but like what's happening right now in your life?
I mean, it's always a funny place. Like you talked about it when there's always a movie in post production that you're on that you've put the performance in, and I was really excited about it because it just took a lot of work and a lot of different things, and I was like singing and playing guitar in it, so there was a lot of work to get that down to a point that you wanted it. That I'm excited for that film to come out, but again, I have no control over it. And the thing that I really focus on now, and this pertains to life, is like if I can control it, then I'll put my energy into it and my thoughts and be like, okay, how can I be better? But if I have no control anymore, it's not worth my time. Like I'm not going to worry about this thing that I can't affect anyways. And so hopefully it'll be cool. I'm focusing on this next film. I'm going to North Carolina next month for. But the thing that's really just like firing me up is a lot of stuff that I've been working on writing and creating. And I was always the youngest in the room because I started whatever 12, 13. So it was always like you're trying to be heard, trying to be heard. And now that's not the case. There are people younger than you, and you are the age of, we're still very much on the younger side of this industry, but like our voices are heard and you can be spoken for. And like, dude, I have to say, I admire you for doing this. And I wish that I had something like this when I was younger to listen to. Like, I really do, because it would have been so cool for all the points you said to like commiserate, but you empathize and be like, oh yeah, I'm going through that as well. But also to just, you're taking a little bit of control of your own destiny, because that is one thing we don't have the most control. We're waiting for the audition to get the gig, and hopefully it's a cool role. Like we hope it's a great character, and maybe it's a character that, like you said, it's just an average character where I could do more with this, but that's up to someone else. So right now, some of the stuff that I've been working on, and I've paired up with a couple of producers I've worked multiple times with, you start to find your crew, and you realize why some of these big people we look up to, like Tarantino, works with the same people over and over. Your Wes Anderson, it's that same group. You have people going back to the same well, and I'm starting to find that community, which is so cool. And I'm just excited about stuff that I'm creating, because we got in to tell stories. And while you're an actor, you're a piece of a story. When you're doing something that you're really overseeing, you're looking at the chessboard, and you get to all those things that you're imagining in your head when you're going to sleep. You can kind of see come to life. And so that's been cool.
Yeah, no, dude, I appreciate you sharing that, man, because that's why I wanted to create something like this for our community, bro. I don't know. I know, like, I look at my past 6 years of my life right now, right? When I think about a lot of the great relationships I've been able to build over the years from different projects, from all the conversations that we're able to have on set, that the moments and just so on and so forth with other castmates and other cast members, it just makes me realize like how important it is to keep each other uplifted in this community, because we have people that check themselves out from dealing with the frustrations of this, and that make not the smartest choices, because there's a lot of pressures that come with this. Hearing how you're now in a position where you're writing. I always tell people the power is in the pen. When you write, the power is in the pen, and the fact that you're writing, you're now giving an opportunity to now dive into characters that you haven't been able to get yet, because you're writing it. That's what every writer I know, every actor who writes their own shit, is because they're like, this is a character I want to dive into. I haven't gotten an opportunity to do yet. Even if you have other great characters, but it's a different character,
Absolutely.
And now being in a position to help out others. You're a leader. Your life is your message to the world. So the fact that you're taking it upon yourself to now create and employ and help other up and coming actors, or help other actors be in a position to come and create, man, is beautiful. I think we need more people like this, and I'm happy to hear that again. Another actor who's successfully working, who's already had skin in this game for now 10 years, is actually now going to the next level and creating these projects. And again, Michael B. Jordan's producing, you got Issa Rae who's producing, you got all these actors that started in one realm that elevate And that's why I want to encourage, you to keep doing, bro, our community, bro. And I'm just glad I was able to get you on this podcast today, because I think it was just a great reminder of how important it is to fall in love with your craft. That when you said that, I think that's going to stick out more so than anything in this episode, is like the purity aspect. It's like, man, don't do it for the validation, man. I had a billboard in New York of me, bro, and then I was the saddest. Like, fuck. Like, that's a weird feeling, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
it's very counterintuitive.
Weird. It's weird. So hearing your stories and your experiences, man, I think is really powerful, and just a fresh reminder on where your validation should come from and where your focus should be. I love that you prioritize your family. I love you prioritize your friends, and just feeling good in life, because then that's going to translate to your work,
Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
well, dude,
man.
Thank you for having me. It's so
bro.
great to talk with you. It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
You too, bro.
But also, thank you for doing this. And I think it's so cool to put out for artists. Artists are my favorite people, man. And so I just love to hear from other artists, because you lead with your heart and you're out there and vulnerable. And it's just a cool way to be in life. So very, very cool, man. Thanks for having me.
And I'm digging the art stand in the back, bro. You look.
No, this is my self-tape. This is my self-tape room. And it's like the place I come when I feel like you have to create every day, and every now and then there'll be this time where you're like, oh, I'm not on a project, I'm not working on something, I don't have tapes, and it's like you can write till you kill yourself. So you're like, I have to like get away from it. So I'll like just paint or I'll dance, dude. I'll come in here, I'll turn music on, and just like 20 minutes and just move around, just stuff that changes how you're looking at things. And so I mean, I'm not a good painter, but I definitely try to do it.
Bro, it's I wish I had some of my paintings that was nearby, but I feel you, because like me and Billy talked about this too. We were talking about the concept of joy. I said chasing joy, but now it's following joy. But following joy, bro, is good. Like, we have to feel good as a creative. Like if I'm not feeling happy, if I'm not feeling like joyful, good, like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be at my highest optimal level. So if I gotta bang some music, if I gotta paint, whatever, go to the driving range, like, you gotta just put yourself in that good feel-good state, man. So it's like a really healthy reminder,
I think of this conversation that my dad had with me. It was when I was deciding whether I was going to go to university or not. And he came in my room and he was like, yo, a lot of people do jobs because they need to have a career that they don't love. He's like, and he's like, I did that. He was a radio DJ, and then their station got bought out. So then he had to get a different job, and then he went into this professional field he went into. And he's like, when I get told no, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't even want to be doing this job. You're telling me no at something I don't want to do. He's like, I see you get told no every day, but you get back up the next day and you keep going because you love it. And it just reminded me of like, oh yeah, I do this because I love it. And that's the best thing for everything. It's like, why would I go do something else because it's safer and there's security? No, like, this is the best job in the world. Yeah.
For all my actors out there, take this advice for real. It's a real like important advice that you should be taking to your life. Take it with a grain of salt, see what you can apply to yourself. But no matter what and whatever you're doing, make sure that you're doing it because you love the craft, and just remember that it's all about being the right person for the right role at the right time. And as long as you stay consistent in what you're doing, you loving the journey, just like you've been hearing every episode from everybody. They've been saying love the journey, but make the journey fun. Make it fun. Enjoy the process. You're gonna manifest what you want. Be on Star Wars one day like Taylor. What's up? But hell yeah, man. Well, shit. Hey, make sure to go follow my boy. Where can everybody follow you at on the socials?
Dude, that's been a hilarious thing. I haven't posted on Instagram, and so I've been trying to just stay away from everything, but I am on Instagram. It's Taylor Gray.
Taylor Gray. I already knew. I just want you to say it because I just want to have that clip. You know what I'm
saying?
Love it. Well, hey guys, that was another episode of the Inspire to Inspire podcast. Make sure to go and subscribe and like. This is the #1 podcast for actors, filmmakers, and content creators around the world. Again, you're not the only one who's dealing with what you're dealing with, so hopefully we can add some clarity in your life. Peace.